Hello, friends, and welcome to your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. We have a jam-packed Monday show for you, fresh off the pod presses. I'm Jer Stays, and joining me in the studio is
Fletcher Sharp.
It is so good to see you, sir.
Yep, it's good to be back.
Yeah, look, we went over to the west side just, an hour ago? Something like that.
Yeah, about that.
And talked to undisputed middleweight world champion Claressa Shields. What an honor.
Yeah, it's been someone I've been really meaning to talk to. As everyone knows, I'm usually pulling for people from the state of Michigan, especially if they happen to be in Metro Detroit, especially if they happen to be black. And Claressa fits all of those. And she's also like a great person. She's someone who does not back down from any question, any punch or anything. A role model for people in similar situations. So to have her be back in the area for a big fight and available to talk was just like kismet almost.
The reason this is all happening is that the first boxing event in the history of Little Caesars Arena is happening on Saturday, June 3rd, where Claressa will be fighting Hannah Gabriels. Let's just roll that tape. So how does it feel to be back in Detroit? First time fighting Detroit since 2018.
I fought, 2018, I guess so. I fought in Michigan, though, 2021. And just to be fighting in Michigan, I have like a total different like fan base just all around the world. But Michigan is like, it's my home. So it's great to be fighting here in front of 15,000 at Little Caesars Arena. I'm happy to finally be getting my homecoming.
Yeah, so you mentioned you fought in Flint in 2021. Last time you fought in Detroit, you also fought against Hannah Gabriels. Similar mindset, I guess, going into this fight as well, or is just you gonna try for something a bit different? I mean, obviously to win, but something a bit different in terms of stylistically, or?
Well, just my goal for this fight is if I was able to beat her unanimously, this time around, I should be able to get the knockout. I already know what I need to do. I know what shots work. I know what shots don't work. I know what her shots worked and which ones didn't. So the game plan is to go in there and to do 100 times better than what I did last time and hopefully come out. Well, I'm going to come out victorious, but come out victorious with the KO.
Kind of leaning into the KO. You're undefeated so far, 13-0. Is there a way you like to win? Is it just you like, doesn't matter, it's just a win's a win? Or is it like, I want to go for the knockout, I like the decision? How do you like to typically win your fights?
I like to just win. You know, if it's a knockout, it's a knockout. If it's not, it's still a W at the end of the day. As long as my O stays right where it's at, I am perfectly fine. Knockouts matter to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, I'll be happy with winning and I'll be overjoyed with a knockout. So it's kind of the same to me.
And to your point about a homecoming, like I know this is like the first boxing match at LCA since 2017. How big is it that you get to have that on your resume? I
mean, it's great that I'm the first boxing match at Little Caesars Arena. I mean, it's a dream come true for me. You know, being just a young black girl from Flint, you know, I dream about these things, and to see it coming to fruition, me getting my chance and my shot, and just being where I am in my career, it's just right on time.
And to that point as well, like I can say personally, when it comes to people from Michigan, for the most part, especially black people from Michigan, I'm rooting for them. So I've been following your career since you've started, and every single win, I'm like, this person for sure, doing great things. And just, what do you say to like the fans you hope to inspire, I guess, to maybe follow in your footsteps to some degree?
So with my fans, I have little girls that look up to me and also little boys. And I just hope that I show them that they can do whatever that they put their mind to. Don't be afraid to be different. And just to believe in themselves. That's how I got here. Believing in myself and trusting God. I believe that that's how all this stuff came about. Like, women's boxing was nothing when I turned professional. There wasn't women fighting on TV. There weren't women making millions of dollars. It just was not happening. God had told me that in order for women's boxing to flourish, you have to turn pro. I could have went back to the Olympics for a third time and won gold again. I decided to turn pro and join the fight for equality for women's boxing. And with me doing that, I have been able to get us up to superstardom. I am one of the reasons why we get paid millions, why we fight on TV in America and across seas, and just showing that women's boxing is no different than men's boxing. So I've been a huge part in that, and I just want to show everybody that's coming up that if they want to be boxers or champions, it's all about how much hard work that they put in and how much they believe in themselves.
With a message like that, do you feel any sort of additional pressure added onto you from that, or is it just kind of natural?
It's just natural. There is no added pressure. I always be like, I don't know what pressure is. Like, if I felt it, I didn't know I was feeling it. I kind of feel like when I'm walking to the ring, I get like something that I call like a caution feeling, where it's like, okay, it's like my sixth sense kind of pops up and let me know, okay, we're getting ready to get inside the ring for a very important fight. But it's not something that I would consider nervous or I would consider pressure. I kind of enjoy that. I enjoy fighting, so why would I be nervous or feel any pressure about it?
So like the spidey sense goes off and you're like, I'm here, it's time to like dig in and get ready to fight, but it's not like a nervous feeling of like, oh, this might be a little bit tough. It's like, I know I have this under control. I'm about to put my fist in someone's face, right?
I think that all my fights are going to be tough. I just know that I'm tougher than all of them. I am tougher and I'm smarter and I got a better IQ than all of them, and I will figure it out no matter what happens in the fight. Don't ever count me out. You know, a first round knockdown, second round knockdown. If I get knocked down 3 times in the fight, just know that during those knockdowns and those 8 seconds that I'm figuring out how I can get this girl up out of here. Like, what do I got to do to win? So I've never counted myself out in any fight, and I don't believe that there's a girl out there that can make me feel like there's nothing I can do to get the win. I'm always going to believe that I have that puncher's chance and that I have great skills. So I'm not ever nervous. I'm actually excited to fight, and I think and that's what gives me the edge. A lot of these girls are nervous and they don't know what's going to happen, or they're hoping for the best. I'm like, no, I'm just here to scrap. I am here to fight. I am here to rumble. I am here to get in the jungle with you, Thriller in Manila, however you want to do this. That's what I'm here for, and that's just what I plan to do. So I'm not ever nervous or anything like that.
When it comes to your connection with Michigan, how has that helped shape your career going forward?
I mean, I am from Flint, Michigan, one of the worst cities that they say in America, and we're still fighting to get clean water right now. Detroit is right down the street. It's only an hour away, so we're kind of the same people, and I have a huge connection with a lot of people from Detroit, from Tony Harrison to Cash Dow to Eastside Ivo. I know a lot of celebrities here in Detroit, and some I know just by their face and not by name. We all kind of have that same thing where people count us out, and we have to continuously show that we are who we are and that we are stars along with the others.
Is there something that is a thing that people need to know about Flint for the next time they go there, the next time they think about Flint? What is it that you want them to think about your hometown?
I want them to think about, when I think about Flint, think about Claressa Shields for one. Think about the city has beautiful people. I mean, I had great basketball coaches, great track coaches, great boxing coaches, all from Flint. And people always talk about, just, the murders and the water. And it's like, Flint is a very nice place, and it's like any other place where there's a little bit of, I don't want to say drama, but violence, I guess. But it's a place that creates beautiful people.
Best post-match meal?
After the fight, you can give me some fried chicken from either Popeyes or from Nando's. Nando's is only in the UK, but if it was here in America, I would eat it. But yeah, give me some fried chicken, give me some yams, give me some mac and cheese, and give me the fries. Or you can give me a nice ribeye steak, medium well, mashed potatoes with some asparagus. That sounds like a party to me.
Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George. I hop in the Porsche, it's 5 and a horse. I'm ready for war. I'm coming for throats to turn to a ghost. I need to know everything. Now they ain't go harder than me. They need a blade in a sheath, a shank in a piece, a crate full of heat.
Let's get into our normal course of business, Fletcher. There is a lot to talk about. The USFL kicked off their season.
Yeah, all 8 teams of the USFL played, including the Michigan Panthers, who won their first game in the first game of the season, 29-13. But the bigger story, in my opinion, is the fact their quarterback, Josh Love, set the new record for completion percentage in a game. 90.2% means that he did not miss much. I think he had more touchdown passes than incompletions that game, which shows, there is some talent in the league. I know he went to San Jose State, so he's not, wasn't one of the big schools, but there's talent all around. And thankfully for Michigan Panthers, they have someone at quarterback.
Hopefully it's going to be some fun football to watch, man.
Yeah, we're hoping that they can get another win. So when they get back to Ford Field in 2 weeks to have their first home game, they're coming in, undefeated, and maybe they can keep that streak going.
That Detroit City FC game over the weekend down in Miami, I am so glad that we got 1 point. But let's have some very honest conversations right now, Fletcher. That 1 point did not feel very fulfilling.
That game sucked, and I don't really care who gets offended. That game was not a good game to watch, and it's one of those games where you're tell your friends who are very much super Americanized, and you're like, it's not exciting, and you're like, soccer is a really physical but also great sport, and you point out what happened at the World Cup, and their comeback would be Detroit City FC versus the Miami FC, because that game was like watching two big bruising boxers show up and sock and boppers, and it's like, we're gonna fight, and then they just punch, and all you hear is just squeaks. You don't actually hear blows being landed. It's just boop boop, and just it was like, wow, like I have to watch this and I have to actually have analysis, but like I would much rather watch this dog in front of me just like take a dump on the carpet. I do not want to watch this. The offense was ineffective. The defense, people were worried because Stephen Carroll and Matt Lewis were both out for the game. Didn't have to be that worried because as bad as Detroit's offense was, Miami's was just as bad. So like no one really got tested at all. I think Nate maybe made one official save that entire game. So like, yeah, 1 point is 1 point, and points are progress. That's how you make the playoffs, is, carving out ties when you need to get losses, or carving out wins when you need to get that's how you get into the playoffs. But like this, if you are not a fan of like pure like unadulterated soccer, like the real deep cut, you would have turned this game off, and I wouldn't have blamed you.
But we need to look at a few different facts, and you dug up some stuff over the weekend because you and I were texting during the match and kind of getting prepped for this. I think we need to look at some facts of where things are actually at.
Yeah, so people are saying, well, last year's offense was better because they had Hopino and they had Pato. Actually, last year's offense was just as bad. While they did score 44 goals last year, 17 of their 44 goals in 6 matches were against MLS 2 teams. So, like, that's the game where they thrashed Atlanta United 2. They thrashed Loudoun back when Loudoun was an MLS 2 team before they became independent.
And I'm going to put a pin in this. We're not going to talk about much of it today, but Loudoun is for real. Like, that's a decent team now.
Oh, no. They have a few players that, like, you're going to have a hard time saying their names, but you'll definitely know them by the end of the game because you'll see their last names as they dance by players the entire day.
So for future reference for listeners, do not think of Loudoun as a former MLS 2 team. Think of them as a par team.
They still have the same kid as last year, which looks like DC United's jersey, but they are not a DC. Like, DC United is like a partner, but they're not sending down their players just to get experience. They're down there to win. But to that point, 17 of DCFC's goals last year came against MLS 2 teams. So a lot of thrashing against those teams. They had a few games, but they didn't score any. But for the other 28 games, they scored 27 goals against the rest of the league. So less than a goal a game against the rest of the teams still in the league. So, like, yeah, the offense is on par as the same as last year's offense. There's nothing that's been changed at all in that regard. They're just not playing against tomato cans anymore. They're playing against actual teams built to win and not just to develop their players and say, oh, look, this guy's going to be great in a few years. Who cares, if he drops a clunker here or there. So, yeah, I mean, the alarm bell should have really been going off when they were tying against teams they should have been beating. But we're here now, so we have to deal in the now. On a much more direct level, not all would be lost for the season if they did not have a great season, because one player is playing really well, albeit he has to play a bit harder than the rest because, that's kind of how the sport works. Nate Steinwasser currently has 21 saves this season in 6 games, which puts him at the top. If he continues at this pace, which would be 21 saves, 6 games, 3.5 saves a game, he would put him on pace for 119 saves this season, which would put him at 4th all-time in single-season history in the USL Championship.
So he's got a shot of actually being the USL all-time leader, depending on how this shakes out.
Right, and it's like saves are great, but if you're a keeper, the record is 130 by a player from Phoenix Rising. That year, Phoenix Rising was very bad. So, like, if your keeper's making 100-plus saves in a season, he's having to work way too hard. And, like, that goes down to, like, well, we have a great defense. Do you? If Nate's number 1 in saves this year, is your defense really that great? Because he shouldn't be working that hard if your defense is great. If your defense is great, that means the keeper's making stops, but also you're making it so he doesn't have to make that many saves. If he's got to work that hard, at the end of the game, if he's drenched in sweat because he had to run around, maybe your defense is not as great as you thought. Like maybe your keeper is just exceptional and your defense is like okay. And I understand this last game, again, Matt Lewis and Stephen Carroll are out. So like, yeah, maybe that's a bit of a mulligan there. But
I worked lose one of them for a while.
Yeah, Matt Lewis, he hurt his foot against Louisville City, and it was the same foot he'd been out with, in past years. So that would be concerning to me. Stephen Carroll might be back. I know he kind of hurt his hamstring a little bit during warm-up, so did O'Neal Fisher. That's why they both weren't present last match. But Matty Lewis's injury makes me more concerned because you don't want to see people getting hurt at the same exact time, the same exact way a year later.
Is it time to make some major changes?
Oh, to the lineup?
Or even to personnel?
It's not, code red, DEFCON 5, like we need to start getting water out of the hull. But like you're reaching a point where if you're not going to be scoring goals, you need to make sure you don't give up any goals. Because right now the style of soccer they're playing is what, a lot of people like to refer to as Route 1 soccer, which is where the ball just goes out wide, goes very long up the field, and you just got to hit and hope that someone can catch. It's essentially like playing Madden and calling for a Hail Mary almost every play and hoping your guy comes down with it.
A buddy of mine texted me during one of the previous games and was like, hey, this is like how I remember soccer in England when I was a kid.
Yeah, and I mean,
I didn't really understand what he meant.
That would make sense because Trevor James typically plays that type of style where it's, the ball goes wide and goes up. And last year really wasn't much of an issue as much because they still found some effectiveness with it because you can catch people off guard with it. If they're expecting you to, kind of move the ball up a bit slowly, maybe make a few darting passes and a few darting plays, and you just hoof it up to somebody, there's a 1 in 5, 1 in 6 chance your guy might get to the ball first and do something with it. The problem is if they know you're going to do that, you can prep for that. And the really good defenses will prep and make changes. And because now they had a full offseason to analyze how Detroit City FC plays, teams won't fall for that anymore. So if you're going to try to just hoof the ball up and hope that your guy is faster than the other guys, like perfect example, against Louisville City, Ben Morris turned by Joshua Winder and went down the field with the ball. It didn't result in a goal, but it was a chance. That did not happen again for the rest of the game. It happened once. And once they figured out this is what they're going to do, we'll just play a few steps back further. He can't do that anymore.
For listeners, can you compare that to what happens now? Because I especially for new people, I don't think you got to give a little bit contrast here.
I mean, I know American soccer still has a lot of hit and hope, Route 1 soccer, but like modern soccer, if you're watching on some higher level American teams or even, some parts of England or Spain or Germany, like the ball moves in a triangle. So you see people form triangles on the field, which really means some guy standing here. And if you look up, you have someone to your left and to your right about equal distance apart. So no matter what you do, whether you decide to keep the ball and dribble forward or look to pass left or pass right, it's like the basketball version of a triple threat where it's like either they can shoot, pass, or dribble. Like it gives you a chance to do something. And if you keep making triangles on the field, it means there's always going to be gaps available. It means someone should be open or you should be the person that's open. And, it's harder to defend against, but also if you get a chance to get the ball and take it away, like you have more space to operate with. But at Route 1, there's less space for you to counterattack, but like it's a lot easier to figure out if all you know is you're just going to hit it up the field and have to hope that it goes in. So yeah, I mean, again, in Nisa, they didn't really play this kind of Route 1 style of soccer because they had the more talented players. They had a bit more of a deeper bench. They could afford to just pass the ball around and kind of work the anaconda way. Whereas, now they're not doing that because they don't really have those luxuries anymore. They have a shorter bench, not the finances to deal with other teams, and they just have to just hope this is a style that works.
Let's talk real quick about Sacramento Republic. I don't think there's much to say. I don't think this is going to go favorably for us.
No, had it been last year's team, it might not have been that favorable because while they are a solid team, they made the U.S. Open Cup final last year as a Division II team, which is pretty rare in modern soccer. They weren't really a high goal-scoring team, but they were like a solid team that did not really make mistakes. Like if you made a mistake, they would capitalize. Last year when they beat Detroit, it was because they just capitalized on mistakes. They didn't do much more. This year's team, a bit different. They currently have scored 12 goals, already have 14 points, only given up 1 goal this season outside of U.S. Open Cup play. And they're led by a nemesis of DCFC fans, if you've been following for a while, if you will. Last year he played for Pittsburgh. This year he's with Sacramento. Russell Cicerone.
Didn't you want to sign him?
Yes, Russell Cicerone.
I remember. Okay, I'm not crazy.
Michigan native son from Bloomfield. Went to Buffalo University, played for FC Buffalo against Detroit, scored some goals, played for Michigan Bucks played against Detroit in the U.S. Open Cup. I wanted to sign him because he's proven himself to be a goal scorer at this level. He used to be more of a wing-type player. Someone transitioned to being more of a central forward, and the goals just started pouring out. And I was like, it'd be great to have him come back and do that, in Keyworth. And maybe if he has some resentment towards DCFC because, they've used to beat him in Buffalo a little bit, he used to beat back a bit, maybe he'll come back and work that out, get to play in front of his family and friends, kind of how Hopino wanted when he went to Hartford. And instead, he went to Sacramento and is currently tied for second in goals scored this year with 4. So I would be worried because we know his body of work. They have other players as well. They still have a very stout defense they had from last year, but now they've added the goals to be scored. And while Detroit still has a pretty good frame in terms of holding people to lower scoring games, they have not shown they can score a goal, whereas Sacramento has shown they can score many goals, including a 5-0 drubbing of Louisville City, who totally pants Detroit. So that makes me a little nervous. Ask me for a prediction, I'm probably going to say 2-0 Sacramento. I'm only saying 2-0 because I do think Detroit will try to keep it tighter at the back, but that will not allow them to try to get up and try to score. And I think when they try to go up there and try to score, I think they'll get countered for mistakes, and it won't be pretty. So 2-0 Sacramento, unfortunately.
All right. I want to hear feedback. dailydetroit@gmail.com. How are you feeling about the season right now? And we'll talk soon, of course, about the upcoming Open Cup match. Now, before you leave, Fletcher, the story came through the wire, and I wanted to talk about it a bit because it's an interesting thing in Metro Detroit. It is an important thing to me. It's kind of a niche historical thing, but I want to talk about it. The Henry Ford, which is over in Dearborn, where they've got all kinds of historic places that they have kept, whether it's the Wright Bicycle Shop or old carousels, all kinds of interesting things. They have acquired and will preserve the Selma, Alabama home of Dr. and Mrs. Sullivan Jackson. It was known as the Jackson House, and it was the safe haven where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. worked, collaborated, and strategized the Selma to Montgomery marches of 1965. It's going to be moved up in trailers. It's going to be given a new roof. Of course, new systems inside to kind of not modernize it, but modernize it from a safety point of view. I think it's good to see this kind of thing at the Henry Ford to kind of update the collection to things that I think are very, very important. I've always enjoyed the Henry Ford as a place. Fletcher, I know that you had some thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's really important to preserve history, and this is definitely history. Dr. King's Selma to Montgomery marches were really important for the thread of history. They kind of helped kickstart a lot of the bus boycotts, and it was very important to have things from that time preserved, especially at a time right now where we're kind of seeming to ban things that seem to be like that. So to find a company or find a group who wants to preserve these historic things, especially so close to here, is amazing and great. And I think if you have the time to go check them out, you definitely should. Because if you are ill-informed, they'll do their best to let you see these things. And I think some people learn a bit better from actually seeing things with their eyes and understanding it as opposed to reading an article about it.
And we are done for today. Thank you so much to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/dailydetroit, including one of our newest, Jennifer. Thank you so much. A little bit of a programming note. Now, I talked about me going out of town, and that was something that I knew something else was happening, but I wanted to think positively. Unfortunately, I lost my super senior dog over the weekend. And so normally I would be able to fit in 5 shows, but I was worried when I said that might happen. I've been trying to give her the best year of her life until then. So I need some time off. So we will have shows on Wednesday and Friday, and then back to our normal schedule next week. With that, thank you so much. I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Fletcher Sharp.
Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.